Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and design. So if you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the weekly videos and so that you can join our wonderful drawing community. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to draw a really cool botanical art that has some sort of a boho, mid-century modern feel. So grab your drawing tools and let's get started. So as usual, the first thing to do is to create a new canvas. If you're not familiar with digital art and you don't necessarily know which size to use, I definitely recommend you go and watch my video about how to pick a canvas size. It's not super long and it's really easy to understand, and at the end you'll be able to know which size to use if you want to print your art. So it will be linked in the description below, you can definitely check it out. In my case, these are the dimensions that I'm using. So basically I'm drawing in a file that would be the size of a regular piece of paper, like a letter size piece of paper. And we're going to start up by setting up the background color. So for this tutorial, I created a free color palette that you can get, well, for free. And it will be linked in the description below if you want to download it. Otherwise, you can pick your own colors, that totally works as well. But if you have the palette, this section here in the middle is a nice selection of white and cream colors, so I'm just personally going to go with white. And we're going to create a really rough sketch. So go ahead and create a new layer, rename it to sketch, and you can pick whichever color you want for sketching. I like to go with a dark gray. And I'm going to use the HB pencil that comes with Procreate in the sketching panel. So this sketch you're going to see, you can be super quick and rough. You just want to basically map out where everything is going to be. So in my case, I know I want my vase to be a bottle shape, so I'm just sketching a bottle very, very quickly, but you can draw really any shape you want for your vase. But here, yeah, I went with a thin bottle with a nice shoulder and just like a regular kind of beer bottle situation. And yeah, I mean, there are so many lines, but that doesn't matter. This sketch is not going to be in the final product at all. So once you have a vase that you like or a bottle that you like, just go ahead and kind of draw the general shape that you want your plants to be. So here I'm drawing one main stem that is going to have leaves on it, and then two kind of very thin leaves as well on the side. So once you're done with just mapping the general branches, you can go in and add more details. So like little leaves like I'm drawing here, I'm just kind of drawing secondary stem on my main stem and then going back and adding, again, super rough leaf shapes. And at this stage, we're pretty much just thinking of the composition of our piece. So we're really not going in and drawing anything precise. I mean, you'll see later when we add the color, I'm not going to follow these leaf shapes that much. So here, really focus on being quick and loose and just map out the elements. Don't even think about erasing. If there's something that you draw that you don't like, just undo and redraw it until it's roughly what you have in mind. And don't be afraid of playing around and changing stuff. I promise it's all going to come together in the end. So once you have a really rough sketch, you can move it around in your canvas to put it kind of in the center or whatever you want it to be with the arrow tool. And if you activate snapping here, it's going to show you a few guides. So the yellow lines are the center of your canvas, so that can be really useful if you want to center your sketch, obviously. But again, don't spend too much time on the sketch. We're going to move everything around at the color stage, which is going to be just much more precise at that point. Great, so once you have a rough sketch that is roughly placed where you want it to be, go ahead and change the blending mode of the layer to multiply and then lower the opacity until you can just barely see it. You're then going to create a new layer, put it below the sketch layer and rename it to vase or bottle or something that you're going to remember. Now, again, if you want to pick your own color, you can definitely do that. Otherwise, you can use the color palette. In my case, I'm going to go with just this orange here, which I recommend if you do want to pick your own colors that you stick, no matter the hue, kind of in this section of the color gradient, I guess. So something not too dark and not too saturated. And for the brush, I really like the technical pen that comes in the inking panel. But I recommend that you double tap on it so that you can access this menu here and that you increase the streamline somewhere around 40%. And what that does basically, it just smooths kind of your line a little bit. You can see here it makes the curves just a little bit nicer, which is going to be super helpful in this project. So the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to outline your bottle or your vase. So here, unlike the sketch, you do want to be precise. I like to start with just both sides. I think it's just easier. And then I kind of turn my canvas around so that I can draw the bottom in one fell swoop. It's just easier to have nice curves that way, I think, at least in my opinion. And then I go and do the top, like the neck of the bottle and the little top part of the bottle. And you might want to add a little squiggles if you have a bottle as well, just like me. And then you just use color fill and fill in your shape. And we're going to come back to this shape later in the video to add some details, but for now, just go in your layer panel and lower the opacity somewhere around, between 80 and 90%, just so that we can see through the vase a little bit. You're then going to create a new layer, rename it to branch or something like that, and put it below the vase. I'm struggling here, but we got it. And on this layer, you're going to draw your foliage. So if you pick your own color, you can always go in the harmony panel here and just kind of play with the options at the top until you see some green recommended to you. And then you just tap on the screen, going back in the classic option. You can go ahead and desaturate your color. So that way you know your green is going to work with the color of the vase. And you can adjust that green as much as you want. As long as you don't shift the hue, you can play with the saturation and the brightness, and it is going to look good. So here, I'm just going to focus on the main branch with all the leaves. So just starting with kind of the stem, then adding the secondary branches, and then drawing the real shape of the leaves. So remember what I was saying in the sketch step. I'm not gonna follow the shape of the sketch that much. There's what I meant by that. So I found that if you actually draw leaves that are super pointy, thin, and kind of squiggly and wobbly, that's going to look much better than leaves that are like super round and perfect looking. So I really encourage you to play with more organic shape as opposed to perfect shapes. Plus, it's just easier to do. And once you have all your lines, how your leaves outlines, I'm struggling today, guys. Just go ahead and fill them in with color fill, just like we did for the vase. And the smaller leaves, you might struggle a little bit. It might be easier. You can see here, I am struggling at least. It might just be easier zooming in and coloring them in yourself. I personally like to keep fairly simple, but I do like to add a little detail, which is to kind of thicken the base of the stem, just so that it doesn't get totally lost in the vase. So yeah, just so we can see it a little bit more. So once you have your main branch situation sorted, go ahead and create a new layer, rename it leaves or grass or whatever. Basically, we're just going to be drawing the other leaves on a separate layer. And I like to put it below the branch layer, but you could put it on top. That's again just up to you. And you're gonna go in with a different green for this, so you can use a color palette or again the same harmony tool, and same technique, just outlining the shapes and not erasing, so undoing if you make a mistake just like I did, and then using color fill to fill in the outlines. So take your time here to draw all the shapes really nicely until you're fully happy with them. So feel free to pause the video here and we will all meet in the next step, in which we're going to start adding details on this piece. Great, so once you're happy with your base, we're going to do a little magic trick here. So start by hiding the sketch layer, and then you're going to swipe with 2 fingers on each layers toward the right. So the vase layer, the branch layer, and the leaf layer. And this is effectively activating alpha lock, as you can see here. If it doesn't work, just double tap on the layer and you can activate it manually. You're then going to go back and select your vase layer, as well as the color that you use for the vase, which is still probably going to be in the history. Otherwise, you can just use your finger and select it. And you're just going to make it slightly darker. So nothing too crazy, just a little bit darker. And with the same brush you use to draw your shapes, go ahead and draw kind of a bottom part of your bottle. So I like to go with just a little ellipse like this that doesn't really touch the sides. We're also going to add a little bit more detail at the top. So the thing with alpha lock is you can see here, whatever you draw is going to stay in that shape. So that's super useful. you don't have to erase or worry about staying within the lines. So that's just a really nice magic trick, like I was saying. So here in my case, since I'm drawing a bottle, I'm kind of drawing the separation between the bottle opening and kind of the shoulders of the bottle, I guess. But if you are drawing a vase, you might want to have something different. But basically the idea is just to add a little bit more dimension. You can then go in with a lighter version of your main color and just add a little bit of light. And for that, I like to draw 2 little ellipses just on one side, nothing more complicated than that. And we're going to add a little bit more dimension to the other layers as well. So going on your main branch layer, again, selecting the color and making it slightly darker. This time what I like to do is kind of split the leaves into halves and then color some in fully and leave some other ones just kind of like they were. So again, here you're just experimenting and you just want to add a little bit more detail and make your piece slightly more interesting. And guys, if you've watched this far, please go ahead and comment the word boho. I know it sounds crazy, but it gives me a lot of insight in how to edit my videos better and just kind of how to pace everything, which in turns help me create better tutorials for you. And it's also really cool for me because you guys know me, but I have no idea who you guys are. So whatever you leave a comment, I get to see your name or your username, sometimes even a picture, and it's just super cool to see the nice drawing community that we are building here on the channel. So yeah, please just go ahead and comment the word boho and we'll keep going. So you probably see me coming right now. The next step, we're just going to change to the leaf layer, going back again, picking the color, making it darker, and just adding more detail. For these, I like to just split them in half, roughly. Nothing more complicated than that, but it just, again, brings a lot more dimension to the piece, and especially if it's for print, I think it's good to add just a little bit more detail so that it doesn't look too boring when it's printed and it's big on your wall. Speaking of details, go ahead and create a new layer. This one, rename it to line art. And this step is totally optional. Well, I mean, everything is optional. You get to draw whatever you want, but this one is especially. But yeah, it's just super quick and it's going to make your piece feel just more modern and just stand out more in general. So if you want to go ahead, you're just going to pick a dark gray, but not quite black. And with the same brush, just a smaller size, you're going to draw some leaves that are not filled in. So just kind of like these outlines or line art of leaves that you're just gonna sprinkle in your piece. They're similar to the leaves that are colored, of course. You don't want to go in and add something that makes like no sense and that is totally different. But you can see already, it just makes everything look so cool, so modern, and it's taking literally 30 seconds. So at this point, your vase and your leaves should start looking pretty good, but the background is a little bit boring. So we're going to remedy that. So go ahead and swipe all your layers toward the left, which is going to allow you to group them. And then it's just going to be easier to move them around. So again, using the arrow tool, you can place your vase wherever you want in your canvas. And once you find a spot for your canvas, you can really start adding stuff in the back to make everything look good. So let's say I go back to my example that we had here at the start. You can see I have a secondary vase. I mean, it's the same technique. You just draw a new layer and then you lower the opacity again as well. And yeah, that just makes the piece feel way more interesting, at least in my opinion. You can also create a new layer, rename it to lines, and just draw some squiggly shapes in the back. That kind of makes everything come together really nicely. Or you can add some organic solid shape or textured shapes. I don't know if you guys remember my mid-century modern freebie. If you don't have it already, I will relink it in the description below. It is, again, a freebie, so it is free to download, but it includes a bunch of really cool organic shapes that have a watercolor texture to them, so that's something that you could definitely use in this project here. So the way to do it, it's super easy. You just go ahead and click on the download link, and once it is downloaded on the iPad, you're going to locate your file app, which is this blue folder icon here, and you're going to try to find a zip file called Mid-Century Modern. If you have too many files, just go ahead in the search bar here, type mid, and it's probably going to open up the mid-century modern file. But in any case, whenever you do locate the file, just tap on the zip and it's going to unzip it. I already have it unzipped here, so I'm not going to unzip it twice. But once it is unzipped, you can go back in Procreate, and in the wrench icon here at the top, select Add, then click on Insert a File, not insert a photo, insert a file. And then you can locate again the mid-century modern toolbox. This time it's going to be a normal file, which you can open, and you're going to see you have a bunch of really cool organic shapes in here. So you could pick whichever shape you want. I'm just going to go with this like blob here. and it's going to create a new layer automatically in your canvas. You might have to move it around, like you see in my case here, it was not in a group, so I just put it in the group. And then it's really just like any other layer, so you can rename it, you can use the arrow tool to move it around, you can rotate it using this green little circle here at the top, you can flip it, so you can really move the shapes until you get something that you like. You can also change the color of the shapes, by the way. If you go in the adjustment panel, hue, saturation, and brightness to the entire layer, you can then shift the hue, the brightness, and the saturation until you get something that you like. So again, if you want to download the shapes, just like the color palette, it is totally free. It is linked in the description below, and yeah. So there you go, this was how to create some really cool mid-century modern, boho, botanical illustration type of deal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up because it really does help the channel, and I would love to see what you guys create. So make sure to share the results with me either on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And before we leave, don't forget to subscribe because I put out new videos just like this one every single week. I'll see you soon.